God only knows what you've been through. God only knows what they say about you. God only knows how it's killing you. But there's a kind of love that God only knows. God only knows what you've been through. God only knows what they say about you. But God only knows the real you. There's a kind of love that God only knows.
Welcome to Season 2, Episode 5 of Your Journey is Not Over. My name is Tanya Pearson Randolph. This is my own personal journey, and the expressions and opinions are of my own. I own all the rights to my personal journey and to Your Journey is Not Over, neither to be used, copied, or edited in any way without my consent. When I left off Tuesday, I was in an ambulance on my way to a community hospital in another city. Reflecting back on this time in my life, which I haven't done too often. Again, immune to anything that hurt me. It was just my life, the circumstances in which I was born into. But now, remembering events that took place around this time, I do remember my brother coming home for the holidays from the army, and he and I began a tradition. When he would come home, he would spend the first day with me, take me shopping, to a movie, and out to eat. Always Pizza King. That was my brother's favorite. And it was also important to him that I dressed like or had nice clothes and shoes like everyone else. He and I had never had that luxury. I'll just put it this way. What everyone else had and took for granted, he and I didn't have growing up. Even basic things such as food. So it was important to him, and he was and had a big obsession with my shoes. He always made sure I had a nice pair, name brand pair of tennis shoes. I'm sure he remembered, as I do, when I was made to wear hand-me-down shoes that were too small for me. Everyone has always called my feet Flintstone feet. My feet are little, but wide. I've been told it's from walking around barefoot most of my life. I don't know. So with my feet being wide, I would always bust the hand-me-down shoes out and would have to walk around with holes in my shoes and then being too small. It was all I had to wear. And because of this, I still have bone spurs on the back of both my feet. Mind you, our mother dressed fit to kill. She dripped in gold and most definitely had anything she wanted. Her needs and wants came before our needs and wants, that's for sure. But going back to my memories, I do remember my brother asking me about my weight loss while we were eating pizza. I never lied to my brother. He could read me just by looking me in the eyes. And I do remember his questions that day. What's going on, Tanya? Why are you losing so much weight? Don't you eat? Are you doing this to yourself? And I remember I started crying and telling him, yes, I eat. I couldn't explain or answer his questions. I knew, and he knew, after our conversation, that I most definitely wasn't doing this to myself. He knew I was telling him the truth. I do remember the look on his face, even to this day, of complete confusion, puzzled. I know he felt hopeless because something was going on with me, and he didn't know what, and neither did I. So back to the ambulance ride. During that ride, I was hooked up to all kinds of monitors. When we arrived at the hospital, mind you, I was alone. My dad followed in his car. My mom stayed home. I know, right? As a mother myself, I can't imagine. Again, it was who I was born to, what I was used to. I didn't know anything but this from her. As I was being unloaded from the ambulance, my dad was right there. He was frantic, worried. I could see it on his face. He was everything a parent was supposed to be, and I thank God for my dad every single day. Like I said before, when God took my grandma to heaven, he didn't leave me abandoned completely. He gave me my dad. So I was rushed into the hospital and straight into a room. A team of nurses and doctors were waiting for me. I got hooked up to monitors and IVs. I had to have a feeding tube put down my nose and a catheter because my feet were not allowed to touch the floor for the first week of my stay. Of course, an onset of tests began, every test you could think of. My doctor, my attending physician, was so desperate to figure out what was going on with me, to help me, to save my life. Truly, even then, I don't think I realized or even comprehended how much danger I was in. I don't remember any fear. I just knew I was sick and something desperately had to be done. My body couldn't go on, couldn't take any more. I was completely depleted, malnourished, and I weighed nothing. I was skin and bones. So the first week was tons of tests. I was bedfast completely, feeding tube in my nose, catheter, IVs everywhere, monitors everywhere. The second week, the feeding tube came out, and so did the catheter. I could eat food and anything I wanted or asked for, and I could go to the bathroom, but only with assistance with my nurses. I wasn't allowed to get up by myself for fear that I would pass out. Also, I began taken to the basement every single morning to get into the hot tub, a huge metal hot tub like you see in the movies, and then I would be put into the sauna. I do remember I could only wear a towel, no clothes in the sauna. Also, the nurses began letting me walk. Not a lot, but a little, baby steps. First to my restroom that was in my hospital room, and then slowly they started letting me walk around the hospital floor that I was on. One nurse with me, right beside me, and another nurse following me with a wheelchair, just in case I went down, passed out. Which, by the way, I never had one pass out spell at the hospital. And looking back and reflecting back now, I never passed out at school or work neither. The only time I passed out was at home. Never even thinking about this before, and thinking about and reflecting back now, again, it's part of the journey, my journey. And it's also part of traveling down the yellow brick road, my healing journey. Certain things we have to face in order to heal ourselves, and this happens to be one of mine. Yes, looking back, it's painful for me to see how young and helpless I was. And again, like my whole life, I was at the mercy of complete strangers. My nurses and my doctors took on the task of loving me, nurturing me, helping me, and trying desperately to figure out what was wrong with me so they could save me. Every test they did on me came back normal. I was monitored when I ate. Every time I ate anything at all, a nurse would have to be present, and she would have to stay with me for an hour after I ate. At 15 years old, I didn't know what was going on, but after doing some research recently, I now know they truly thought I was anorexic or bulimia. Somehow they were led to believe I was, and I wasn't. I can't stress that enough. I have never once made myself throw up. Never. And the only time I can remember throwing up food in my life was when I was forced as a child to eat something I did not like, or when I was pregnant with my kids and my food just didn't agree with them. So no way, shape, or form was I anorexic or bulimic. Little did I know then, but I know now. Everyone around me had been made to believe that. And yes, I look like that. Doing my research, I looked up Karen Carpenter, and I read some on her, and I seen her pictures. Yes, that's exactly what I look like. So I guess it was easy for people to believe or jump to that conclusion. This concludes my podcast for today. Please join me Tuesday, and always remember, your journey is not over. God bless.
God only knows what you've been through. God only knows what they say about you. God only knows how it's killing you. But there's a kind of love that God only knows. God only knows what you've been